Hello and welcome to another episode of Decoding Phase Transitions, the DPD podcast. I'm your host Anand Biswas, and here we decode the career phases of brilliant minds in academia and beyond. Our today's guest is Dr. Charu Garg, an experimental physicist whose journey captures many of the critical phases that students and researchers navigate, from discovering a love for physics to progressing through higher education and eventually transitioning into industry. Charu is currently working as a system test engineer in an automobile company. Growing up in India, she began her academic path with a bachelor's degree in physics from Delhi University. Motivated by a desire to go deeper into research, she went on to pursue an integrated master's and PhD at IISER, Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research in Pune, one of India's premier research institutes. She then moved abroad for her postdoctoral research at Goethe University Frankfurt in Germany before making a transition into industry. In this episode, we talk about her experience through the full arc of academic training, from national level exam preparation and coursework to the realities of integrated PhD. In this conversation, Charu reflects candidly on her PhD journey, how to navigate the overwhelming literature landscape, how to read and take notes of scientific papers, and how to deal with rejections, an inevitable part of doing research in science. Charu shares how her academic journey helped her develop transferable skills and how she eventually made a thoughtful and well-prepared transition into industry. This episode is rich with practical insights, from asking for help and reaching out to mentors to understanding how academic skills transfer into industry roles and how to adapt to a new working culture outside academia. So without further ado, this is Dr. Charu Garg's journey on the DPD podcast. Welcome, Charu, to my podcast, Decoding Phase Transitions, that is the DPD podcast. I'm super excited to have you as a guest today. And you have an amazing journey. But let me first ask you this question, that you are a physicist, and at certain point, you might have chosen physics, that is, intentionally have chosen physics, or I don't know, physics chose you. I don't know the story. So could you tell us, how did you find physics? When did you fall in love with it? And in your early career or early life, in your childhood, was the passion there, or it developed in later stages of your life?
First of all, thank you, Sananda, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Regarding physics as being my love, it's strange to say that right now that I hated physics. It was the first subject that I couldn't stand by. So till 8th standard in Indian education system, which I was a part of, we have common subject, science, history, and maths, something like that. And then it splits into physics, chemistry, and biology. And somehow the physics chapter started with these basic equations, which a lot of people listening would know. Laws of motion, V is equal to U plus AT. And I was lost there. And the teacher would write, this is initial velocity, final velocity. And I had no idea what initial, where final, where are we going? And there was these assignments they used to give, and I never did it. There was a neighbor who used to say he was like an elder brother, and I would just give it to him to do it. And every he finished and gave it back to me, and it was a smooth process for me until and this is not me. I was a school topper, so I was pretty good, and I could not understand what was happening. And one day I failed my UT exam. So failing means it was just barely passed. And
what is this exam?
Just weekly exams. Yeah. And I realized, because it was just a new section and everybody wanted to know how we are doing as teachers, so they had weekly exams, and had absolutely no idea until I joined these tuition classes, which also became a fashion trend during that phase. And I joined these classes. It was called Mass. Pretty sure it's still existing somewhere. And the teacher there used to have a big whiteboard, and he would make a big tree and a big monkey and make the monkey jump from one place to another and explain laws of motion and parabola.
Wow.
And we had these questions about the banana dropping and the monkey trying to catch it. When will he able to catch it with the time? And then I realized it's all about visualization. And it developed my interest and piqued my interest questions like, oh my God, I can see colors in the sky. How is that even possible?
Wow.
Why is the sky color blue? These questions are now answered in my head with all these simple answers and possible answers. And then it was never stopping. Then I was going on and on and on. And before I knew it, I was in love with physics. And this is all I wanted to do.
That's such an inspiring story, that something you didn't like at all became the core or the center of your life later. You said that your tutoring classes that you were taking outside the school helped you to fall in love with the subject. Do you think that you took additional help because you knew that it can be interesting, but somehow it is not taught in a manner that is acceptable to you? Or was it more of a like, I'm a topper, I have to excel also in this, why I'm failing, that kind of quest? Or maybe your parents had pushed you in that direction?
That's a very good question, and it has a lot of open points. Number one, yes, I was doing good in studies, but being a topper was never a concern or a focal point at all. It can come, cannot come. I come from a middle class family, so there is a slight interest in the scores for sure. But it also comes from a place where my parents could not support me or help me in understanding the level of education I was going for. And also, what I realized was we have to be, we know that having access to internet is pretty new to us right now. In our times, our CBSE books, those were our holy grail. And beyond that, accessibility to good books was not that much possible. So the whole solace was finding somebody who understood much more than us. And that's why tuitions were there, so that they can be an additional support from the school. As we know, our schools are having big batches, so personal attention is not possible. So that was a primary reason to go. And I feel very fortunate to have found good tutors also, where there was no stupid questions. So everything was possible to ask. Question I asked was, yeah, you say in a conductor, electron passes from one point to the other. So by the time in 1 hour, all the electrons have passed through. So my my element should just disassemble. I think of it as a very good question now,
Yeah.
but everything was appreciative. And I feel this is very important to have this open space and let the ideas flow. And I was also fortunate with my friends and everybody around who was also entertaining such questions, and everybody had different kind of curiosities. So there was a big learning space. Especially my tutors were highly educated tutors. So some of them were PhD in physics, some of them were doing masters in physics. So there was an active communication. So I feel this just fueled my fire and it kept going on.
Fantastic. So it's very important to find also the good mentors and good teachers very early on in life sometimes, so that they can help you to find your, they can spark your curiosity further, and they can help you to find your path, as it proved to be your case. From there on, you have chosen the science field, that is STEM. You were along that path. Why did you choose to do a bachelor in physics or bachelor in science, not going to the engineering route? What was that decision look like? And what was the role of your family mentors and teachers in guiding you through that process?
Well, I would say this is a process where actually physics chose me. So, like everybody else, and without having to deny that, I also wanted to do engineering for sure. I wanted to be an IITian, and who didn't at that time? And that was the dream aspiration of every every middle class family. And I thought, yeah, I wanted to do that. But not dwelling into the details, of course, it was not possible that when I gave my 12th exam, I was not cut out for IIT, and I just wanted IIT. That was also something just fixated in my head that I wanted this. And the idea was to take a 1 year break, like many of us did, and thought of reapplying. And in that 1 year, it was my mother's vision.
Can I interrupt you a little bit here before you tell me the role of your mother? Tell us also about the JEE entrance exam. It's not sufficient in India to appear for your board exam, which is the exam that you have to do to finish your school, but also there are national level exams that allows you to enter to these renowned institutes. Tell us also about a little bit of this concept of gap year and preparing so that our audience, our listeners get a good idea of it.
So IIT stands for Indian Institute of Technology, and it's the Ivy League institutes in India. And the whole institute league, or the whole network of institute, is set up with the best possible resources available. And once you go through the training process through an IIT, the vision or the character that you develop is on the path for a success career. That was the idea. To get into such an institute, we have to give an exam called IIT JEE. But one has to realize we have a decent population and a limited number of seats, and there's always a decent ratio fighting for those seats. And these exams are extensively curated by the best minds in the world. And it's not that easy to crack these exams, and you need professional training. Not all of us need it, not everybody needs it, but definitely a good training is necessary to be able to understand what is to be expected, not only in terms of physics or chemistry or biology or the subject orientation, but also how to write an exams, or what is to focus on those 3 hours or 2 hours of the exam. And which in my case was completely missing, completely off, because I was preparing more on the school level. Both are different, very different. The information or the syllabus, how we call it, is related, but also the depth is very, very different. And the way in CBSE, it's very direct. In IIT, you have to think. So
yeah, it's more of a problem solving, and you have to apply what you have learned, and you have to solve different mathematical problems and maybe logical problems. So it's a little bit of different training that is required, and the time is a good factor that you had mentioned. It has a stipulated time within which you have to finish answering all the questions. So more help is required also in that sense. More training is required, because if you are given enough time, maybe one person can solve a problem. It's like any entrance level exams. It tests your depth of the knowledge and your logical reasoning and your problem solving aptitude. So, but you were mentioning that your mother had a role. She said something about not taking a gap year to prepare for this kind of exams.
So a lot of my friends did the training while doing the 12th and 11th standard, very thorough training. And these are proper coaching centers named by different names, which are specifically targeting entrance exams. I was not a part of this. So what some people also do, even if they don't get the nice rank as per them or nice subject which they aspire to have, 1 year gap is taken to thoroughly prepare only for the exam. And that's very normal. But my mother had the vision that if you want to prepare, you can prepare, but you have to enroll in some graduation program. And based on my marks from school, so I could easily get into Delhi University, which is the first next thing to do. And since I knew I'm more interested in physics, the idea was just to go for physics honors. It would give me a bit more depth of physics, and it would help me in my exam. And that was the whole idea. And eventually, I just started to study by myself. I still did not have coaching classes, and I kept going unless until I realized that by the semester end, I was the topper without even thoroughly going through the course or going to the classes. But I just realized I enjoyed it so much that I completely lost track of what I was aiming for. And then I realized that's how I'm saying physics chose me. And then I knew I don't want anything else. And this is the career I want to be in.
Great. You enrolled yourself in the Delhi University for physics honors to do a bachelor's degree. Was it entrance exam, or was it certain college that you enrolled to? Because Delhi University also has a lot of college affiliated to it. If yes, which college, and how did you choose the college?
I have to think a lot of years back. I think there are both the things. There are some colleges which offer direct admission based on the score from CBSE and St. Stephen, and there are some big college which takes you. And then, of course, there is an interview process. In some colleges, I remember There are these cutoff percentage ranges that are done, and based on your score, you are in the top 100 or top trio. There is also an entrance exam. I cannot remember the name right now. Maybe we can look it up later. And then this is a unanimous exam to give. I remember I gave this for masters. I think the times have changed and maybe it's also available for bachelors right now. So that's a whole process. And every college, depending on their own ranking, has a different percentage ranking for the students. I was in one of the affiliated colleges of DU because I was living in south of Delhi, so very much away from the campus. And my college name was Bhaskaracharya College of Applied Sciences.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. How was the interview process during that time?
For my bachelor's, there was just a basic interview. You need to submit forms for your grades, and the professor was there just asking basic questions. And then I got into bachelor's just based on the school performance.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Because they were very much in the limits of their requirements.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. You said that physics found you at this point and you continued to finish your bachelor's degree. Before we move on, do you want to mention any of your role models or family members or anybody who was helping you to guiding through this journey until then? What was your cohort energy when you were studying in Delhi University?
I would say family wise, both my parents were working, and there was a lot of respect for work. And that's where I learned to, in Hindi, we say, karm hi puja hai, means it's to work is to pray. So that was there from the start. I again would say I was lucky to have very, very good professors in my Delhi University college. And they were very inspiring. They were very open minded. And for me to see somebody so educated and so much experience and being so humble and coming to the canteen with you, sitting next to you and discussing things with you, it makes you realize a lot more things about life. And I aspire to be like them. This is how I vision myself to be. And this was subconscious, which I did not realize at that point, because at that age you do not think about your package of salary or your location, etc., etc. The whole idea is what I like. And I would also say I was grateful for my parents to believe in me and trust in me and led me in a journey which they had absolutely no idea about. I would say support from family and professors both went along. Of course, the first one will always be Ramesh sir. He is my guru. He is everything. I even dedicated my PhD to my professor and my mom. He has been a big role model, not only to me, to many others. His journey itself is quite an inspirational route. Then we had Vikas sir, who was that one professor in school we are always scared of to pass through the corridor, and who always not only gave us physics lessons, but a lot of life lessons. And Sandeep sir, who taught us condensed matter physics, in which I eventually did my PhD. It is very interesting to note down that in that batch of my bachelor's, most of us either did condensed matter physics PhD, which was taught by Sandeep sir, or optics, which was taught by Ramesh sir. It's amazing. So you can see the role of professors and teachers around.
But it's also amazing that in a batch, a lot of people went out to do PhD or masters. That is also amazing because in India, I would say there are a lot of pressure, social pressure, also to go in doing something else, and not a lot of family support one can get during these phases if you're studying and pursuing a basic science, I'd say. So, okay, in that aspect, also your class is very special, it seems.
I think they always say that still now.
So, how was your bachelor's journey looked like, and what were you learning during that time that kept your interest in physics to go for integrated PhD, which is a program of combined masters and PhD? So you were choosing a definite path based on what you were learning and what your idea was about physics. And this might have been a transition phase for you in terms of taking a big decision. So, how did you come to that decision?
My batch was the first batch in Bachelor's of Physics in Delhi University, where they went from annual mode to semester mode. So our subjects were broadly divided. So we had mathematical physics, we had optics, condensed matter, and nonlinear dynamics. We had even chemistry. And for me, I cannot describe. It was always interesting for me. So it might sound a bit naive or geeky, but there are a lot of times when lectures were repeated, and I would keep going back to those lectures, even if I was there. It was just astonishing for me how things work, and physics was answering all those questions. And to be fair, I had absolutely no idea what to do after bachelor's. It was again this phase of life where you don't know, you don't think about career path, etc., etc. At least in my phase, I did not. And for me, after bachelor's, there is master's. So it was as simple as that. No left, right, just this. I did think that maybe after master's I can do an MTech because that's another option. What I learned from different people who were around. So BAc, MSc, MTech. But the first step was then finishing bachelor's and getting master's program. And it was a bit unfortunate that there were not many people who could guide us. So we were only reliant on our professors or here in the news, or there was this special. Actually, I don't know if it is still there or not. I must say there used to be a special edition newspaper for researchers. In Delhi, we used to get it. It's a bit of a special prize and it looks very different. And it had a lot of information on opportunities and open exams and etc. or open seminars where you can go. I got a lot of exposure, which solidified my interest in physics. So I don't know what I will do next, but I know I want to carry physics with me. What are those factors? Number one, I always listen to lectures, whosoever is coming. And the golden rule is even if you get 5% of it, you have to go. There is never a loss after hearing a lecture. So that's number one. Number two is always try to learn from experiments. So we in bachelor's, we have 10 experiments and you can do any seven. I didn't like the idea of doing seven. Just do all of it. So this really changes your perspective about what you like or dislike. And the last was I also participated in a lot of events. So there was physics fest and there were competitions, etc. And I also got an opportunity to work in DRDO, which is Indian Defense Lab, for a small summer project. And there were many small projects actually I did in every summer. So I utilized my time every possible way.
Where
And
was this project in DRDO? Where did you
in
do?
Delhi.
In Delhi.
So a professor from DRDO came to give a talk, and we were all very fascinated. And a small tour in the lab, he realized a lot of students were curious, and he offered to guide a couple of students for summer project. And I was fortunate to be one of them. In Delhi University also launched small projects, and I was also part of it. But again, the point is never saying no. So as a physicist, I was taking wheat and rice husks, so the shells of wheat and rice, and using them with the help of some chemicals, putting them in sheets, essentially to make packaging material, biodegradable packaging material for future. And this is very good because you can keep magnetic materials in it. So this is a future vision, and that project was fantastic. The idea is never saying no, or never say no, and you never know what comes out next. In addition, I was also very active in social events. So I was one of the core team member in organizing first Physics Fest. So we went right from different teaching institutes to big universities and institutes to ask for professors, to tattoo shops to get funding. So it was a broad spectra, and that made the experience very beautiful.
Yeah, I can imagine that it giving you a lot of confidence also, and it might have served as a perfect platform for you to have all these experiences firsthand, and not only from textbook, idea to learn physics, but also getting a lot of other skills if you're arranging funds for the physics fairs by yourself. So I can see that you were very passionate about physics from that point on. But you had, as you said, you wanted to do masters next, but you didn't choose the path of masters, but you chose a little bit more than that. You chose a program for your master's, which is the integrated PhD program called in India, which is combined master's plus PhD. So you were choosing a path to do a PhD already by going to a master. How did that happened. At that time, I also remember going through the entrance exam. At that point, there were 2, 3 institutes in India who were offering integrated PhD program, and you have to go through a competitive writing test basically initially. That's the eligibility, and then later you also have to go for an interview. So this is a really elaborate process. And if I'm not wrong, the seats are very, very few considering the number of bachelor students you have in physics in India. I remember during my time, I think JNCSR had like 10 seats and HRI had something like, 5 to 10 seats again. In Allahabad, I don't know how many IISERs had. So this is a really, really tough entrance exam to go through. Tell us about your preparation and the thought process in doing eventually a PhD.
Honestly, I had absolutely no idea what is a PhD. Till I was giving entrance exam, I did not know the full form of PhD. It was just something people do, and I started applying. I applied for a lot of master programs, very well known. And what I also coincidentally found was an advertisement from IISER. So the same newspaper I tell you about where this information is there was a small section there which talked about there is an open position for PhD students. I had no idea what is IPhD, if I'm even eligible to apply. But they have written there that if you're doing a bachelor's, you can do a PhD. And what you have to do is submit a CV and your curriculum and what you have learned and what you're doing and what are your percentages, etc., as an email to them. And that's what I did. This was just in addition. I had no idea IISERs are one of the best institutes in India. Just, okay, they're asking, I would do it. And I did crack some master's positions in Delhi, but I was waiting for IISER to respond. And it was only specifically for IISER Pune. And what they did was they took all the emails and selected few candidates to call them over for a written exam in IISER Pune. And I was selected for that, and I came to IISER Pune. A couple of my colleagues also were selected, so we all came. And this was true for physics, chemistry, and biology because I know friends from all different spectrums. And we went to give written exams. So you have to understand, again, these written exams are framed by the best minds in the world. So it was very challenging. I remember one of the examiner looked at us and said, "Bring anything, scientific calculator, books, anything you can bring, and then you crack this exam." So it was entertaining.
That is open challenge.
Yes, it's open challenge. And after the first written exam, there was a couple of students selected. And after that, there was one interview round by a panel of 3 or 4 professors. And after that, there was another round of interview by a panel of 6 professors. And you can imagine it was quite an extensive search for a PhD candidate by them. And after the second interview round, 7 students were selected, and out of which I was fortunate to be the one.
Very nice. You talked about the IITs, what they stand for in terms of prestige and status. Also, IISERs are similar. Tell us about this institutes.
So IISER stands for Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research. We have many IISERs now, but it started with Mohali and Pune. Now we also have TVM, we have Tirupati, very recent one, and I can't think of more, but there are definitely more.
In Kolkata also, we have one which from the beginning, I guess. I think there are a lot of them right now. But at that time, back in your time, only maybe handful, maybe 3 or 2. These are the top places where you can do your PhD.
IITs are known for BTechs. So this is a very different kind of an education, very different kind of a training. But research, I think IISc Bangalore, JNCSR and IISERs, TIFR, they have really a different platform with the kind of resources they have to encourage research in different fields of science.
So you were chosen as one of the 7 people at the end of it. So you had decided then to move from Delhi to Pune. What were the initial challenge from moving out for the first time from the city where you were raised and went to college to a new city where you have zero idea about. But it's also, I should say that India is a little bit better in that case because you have the hostel facility in this new city, and it's very protected environment, and you basically have a lot of utilities that you can use. There is a cafeteria where you can eat, where you can stay, but there might be additional challenges also along with it, in addition to your master's program, because I think that is also another challenge in a very highly competitive environment. What was that experience about? What did it teach you?
I think this was one of the best things that happened to me. I always say this now to my little nephews and nieces, that it's very important to live alone, away from family. Then you realize how much our parents have nurtured us or kept us in a safe environment. Not that it is important to go, but it's good for your personal growth. So I always lived with my family in Delhi, and I was in a very protective environment. And this was the first time I moved away. Before that, I never had any experience of staying away from my parents. And immediately I come to a city, Pune, which is, would say, far away from Delhi. And IISER is extremely nice, beautiful, and they had, like you said, provided very nice hostels, and there was food. So overall, the transition was smooth, but it was a transition to a city where I do not have any information about, and it's a different language, it's a different kind of people, different kind of food, and slowly, gradually, I got accustomed to it. Eventually, started falling in love with Pune also. It's beautiful, and it made me realize how to live independently, because now when we are living abroad, it is really easier for us because we know how to take care of ourselves and how to take responsibility, how to handle certain situations. And as a researcher, you already face so many challenges. This is also a big part of your growth process, which certainly is very important.
It is true that everybody goes through those challenges, but when you are on the other side of the tunnel, you always see that you had so much learning from this phase. You mentioned that this process for this position of PhD in IISER, what was the preparation on your side look like? How were you preparing for these entrance exams? And what were your strategies when you were going through this phase of going to different exams and written exams, interviews, and everything?
Yeah, this is actually a good point. So, like I mentioned, there were coaching institutes, and one is always welcome to be there if it works out for them. What I realized, it did not work for me for different reasons. And what was fantastic was my dear Ramesh sir offered extra classes after bachelor's to students who wants to prepare for master's entrance exams. And we were a group of 4 or 5 people, and he went through different kind of curriculums in coaching centers, and he tried to understand the patterns and what to teach and how depth one has to be, or the trick ways to get some answers, like some trick questions. But now in masters, it's not really like BTech, it's very different kind of a entrance exam. And he trained us, and it was his motivation, vision, and hard work that brought a couple of us together every evening on Saturdays and Sundays. So I would also say my Bachelor Institute is fantastic in collaboration and cooperating such needs. The library was open for us all the time. So we would go, sit there, just study, prepare for exams, talk it out loud, discuss questions, discuss problems, solve the problems together. Also, there was a competition within. So he would give us exams. So we were mentally prepared to handle pressure, which I think was missed after my boards, which was not the case. It was a different kind of a pressure. So I would say this internal training and be so clear and thorough with the concepts helped us be more confident about facing exams. You can write a written exam and pass it, I would say, after a certain training, but when you're interviewed, it really shows up how much a person knows. And that is what was the preparation or the training completely encapsulated, which helped us reach where we are. All of us reached some places. Some of went in IIT, some went in IISER, some went abroad, some went in Japan to do a PhD. And it's so fulfilling and amazing to see that his hard work paid off like this.
Take us a little bit deeper here in understanding how this looked like. You said that it played a key role in cracking the interviews, what was in that training? Were you thinking out loud? Or because it's one thing to, as you said, it's one thing to putting things on paper. And one thing is to articulate in an interview your understanding, your concepts. So, what was in that training encapsulated that helped you later in all of you basically to reach these amazing places?
I would say it really depends on how we took it. All of us thought very differently. All of us had a very different learning mechanism. I think what we did was when we went home, how we took it to the next step was totally on us. So education material was there, yes, pressure was there, training was there, exam was there, yes. But when we go home, I have to think what is refraction? How do I interpret it? I can calculate speed, refractive index, yes, I can calculate, etc. stuff. But if I have to use it in my day to day life, what is it? Some things just intuitively started to come up slowly and slowly. And nobody could have prepared us for interviews because we never know what is going to happen in an interview, especially like this. I would say for me, I can tell what was my vision. So when I'm reading something, I have to visualize it. I have to understand if I really understood it or not. I look at it as a very unaware person and then try to see if I really understood the depths. I don't know who said this, but somebody told me that if you have a concept and you can explain it to your grandmom, then you have really understood it very well. And I became the grandmom when I was starting to make myself explain things. And if there was a blocker somewhere, I would go back, seek for help, or try to understand it myself. And when you are interviewed, you are asked in a trick way. And if your concepts are very, very clear, then slowly you can clear the clutter out and figure out what is actually happening and what is the answer, what is to be needed to be focused on.
That's a great mental model that you had, explaining to yourself in much more crisp and clear form any concepts, acting as your own grandma. I think listeners are learning a lot from this mental model, and I would say that one should implement it. Also, another trick is to teach to other friends or your classmates. Do you think that part also, the fact that you had a group of people who were having the same goal, were learning things together, but also struggling on their own way, when they come together and discuss things, they also try to do it in a language that is also, easy to grasp. And this clear messaging helped you also, it gives you a practice to articulate with real people. Do you think that also played a little bit of role or not?
I would say by the time the group was there, it was after our bachelor's. So it was more on discussing questions and very technicalities of it, to be fair. But before that, it was naturally for me to teach my friends and my juniors. So after my lectures, there was always somebody hanging around and we would discuss, and it helped me strengthen my concepts because when we teach somebody, we realize what we did not understand. And when we repeat it and we teach, it comes back to us again and again. And there was also a lot of interactive sessions in the bachelor program where we were giving a lot of presentations. We were divided into different groups, and that kept us on track of what we know.
Very nice. Thank you for explaining your process. And I think our listeners are getting a lot of tips from it, how to prepare. But as you said, the main important fact may be also later on as an adult also learning any concepts, because learning never stops, to reflect on things later. So your IISER journey starts, you had some initial challenges, but you also learned a lot from them. What was your master's journey look like? And by then, did you have a clear idea that this is the right path for you? Because a lot of time, our expectations do not match our real experience. So, what was that look like in your case?
I would say since I never traveled away from Delhi or a certain education system, to understand a completely new perspective and education philosophy was quite a challenge. I was used to a book, a chapter, and yes, this was definitely not there in my master's. I remember one of my colleague or my classmate, she asked my professor, so what's the syllabus for this subject? And the professor very gracefully said, you're going to be called masters of physics by the end of this course and you want a syllabus. Yes, there was a bit of topics to be covered, but it was very dynamic also. So it was quite challenging. And I would say there was quite a competition because I was studying with bachelor master students. So these are BSMS students. We do masters together. Okay, maybe I need to explain this. When we go in integrated PhD program, I start with masters. I have in my master's class three different category of students. There are three different types of students. Number one, like me, who finish bachelor. So we are from different parts of the world and are here to do masters, which will be followed by a PhD. Then there are students who are PhD students, but they have to do a coursework before they start a PhD. So they are already covered with their masters. And the third one are the bachelor students from the institute itself. So they are doing their masters now. And one has to remember that these kids have learned from these professors already for the last 3 years. So they know the teaching mechanism and they certainly know what to expect and what's going on. PhDs have master's degree already, so they have much more information.
This is
So
repetition for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's us who just came from bachelor's and have absolutely no idea. I would say again, it was very challenging. My master's was more challenging than my PhD because it was a transition phase and there were lots of time when I gave up that this is never going to continue. And eventually it did. The idea is to understand and be flexible and be fluid in changing our thought process, learning process, and unlearning and learning. This helped me. If I was so rigid, no, I have to have a chapter, I have to have a book, I have to follow this. This doesn't work. One has to be a bit more accepting towards changes and challenges. And that shaped my thought process. And then I could face these challenges much more with open arms.
Did you have to do a thesis for your master's in IISER?
No, my time, master thesis was only done by bachelor students, bachelor master students. Master presentation is there for IPhD students. So after we finish it, we have a panel who sits across, and then we have to present what we did. One has to see that in addition of doing masters, I was also enrolled as a PhD student. So it does not happen that officially last day of my masters, the next day is a PhD day. No, the first day I am a master and a PhD student. So I was working in the lab, maybe not as I was doing as a PhD student because of my lectures and assignments, but that was also there. So there were two different levels of assessments happening simultaneously. So we had, I don't remember, semester test for the PhD life of a master student and also master exams and assignments and annual evaluation.
I see. So it was quite rigorous from the beginning. And how did you choose which area, subject area, you want to pursue for PhD? Because it's also going simultaneously, and you are going to labs. Are all labs open to you? And also, how did you choose between theory and experiment? Was it a clear choice, or did you have a lot of reflection at that point to go to one path?
This is actually a very good question because certainly I was one of the kind who did not know about PhD or research. So for me, this was a completely new platform. One very nice thing I think most institutes do, and IISER also did, was when you join, when you get enrolled, so 7 of us and some PhD students, we all get an orientation program where all professors who are interested in expanding their labs with new students talk about their research and also talk about the future research they want to do, so which can help you gauge what is to be expected from these groups. The labs were always open, the professor doors were always open. So after the presentation, you can always go and ask more questions and try to understand, is it really this which aligns with your interests or not? Since we just come after bachelor's in IISER Pune, at least, I can say certainly there was an opportunity for an integrated PhD student to change field 3 times. So the first year I can do optics, second year I can go and do nonlinear dynamics, and the third year I can choose condensed matter. And this will be the final focus for my PhD. What this can do is help you understand different groups, different dynamics, and also see if this is really interesting for you or not. In my case, somehow I knew I cannot do string theory or multi-dimension. This is something which I did not enjoy. And I knew I was curious in optics or condensed matters. This was two broad topics which I felt very much aligned to. And when I came to IISER, after all the presentations, the method was that you have to submit 3 names, name A, B, C, of professors whose presentations you feel aligned to and you would like to do PhD with them. And those professors at the end will decide who they want to take, maybe based on discussions with you or maybe based on opportunities they have, etc. So all 3 professors which I felt aligned were all 3 condensed matter physicists. So this just naturally felt right. And I joined Professor Sunil Nair, and till date, I don't regret this decision. So.
Great. Were you choosing the professors based on their subject area or depending on their that in the orientation program how they presented their field?
Both. More focus was on the subject for sure, because that is something that attracted me. And he talked a lot about magnetism, and that fascinated me for a long time, which was missed in bachelor courses. So I thought, wow, I'm going to learn so much about it. Superconductivity, come on, who doesn't like superconductivity? So this already caught my eye, and similar was for the other 2 choices I made. So I put, of course, all 3 names. Sunisa seemed a very nice human being. Everybody was a very nice human being. So on a type of personal level, I didn't feel that I prefer somebody over the other.
This is a huge also decision to go for PhD, but also choose which area that you want to choose. Tell us about your PhD journey and what was the overarching questions that you were looking into and what are the tools and applications that you used? How did you approach that question?
Like I said, the major focus on magnetism, which we learn in school, ferromagnet, diamagnets, and goes beyond from there. The idea is to understand magnetic properties of materials. But before we go there, the aim was to find new magnetic materials, and we designed it ourselves. By designing, I mean we, of course, have a literature to look at what could be interesting or a combination of what could be interesting. And in our group, the first step is to synthesize high quality crystals. That was what I did.
Tell us, if I'm a school living student, how would I understand what do you do in the lab and how do you think about making new materials?
You remember we had this simple equation in school, which we used to do. So we would take sodium carbonate plus hydrochloric acid and make salt out of it. So basically, a highly reactive material replaces a less reactive material, and it's a reaction that we want to look at. This is the basis of it. So what we had is I would, like I said, go through literature survey and I would find interesting materials. And also very important is to look for a very interesting crystal structure. So this all comes from what we have learned in school. So we all learned elements. There's a huge periodic table. This is the playground to play in. Then we have crystal structures. We learned what is a cube, what's a hexagon, how do we do fitting in a cube, close packing arrangement, and body-centered arrangement, etc., face-centered arrangement. And the idea is to bring it together. What is the nicest structure with the nicest pair of elements, and together, what's the magic that's going to happen after this? And that was the whole PhD focus for me.
But how do you control having a particular crystal phase?
Okay, it's very important. We cannot shoot in the dark for sure. There has to be a particular understanding. And we start with something we know and slowly progresses towards what we want. Of course, there were some attempts done. So, as we know, we again say the importance of literature review is very, very important. So, there were lots of great scientists before us who did a lot of good work. So, the idea is to look at the research done by them, and what they left is beautiful diagrams called phase diagrams. What it is you have different combinations of different materials which are possible, and it gives you an idea of temperature, pressure, and external conditions or reagents needed to stabilize those forms. So one can start from there and then try to see if you have a similar structure, similar type of elements which can stabilize together in those conditions or not. More or less, it will never happen, but at least it's a good starting point. And that's the whole point of PhD, experimenting and finding out what works and what doesn't work. So that was for me. I had rare elements to use with, so they were very, very expensive. So I could not play around too much. To give you an example, everybody could try with 2 gram or 3 gram of material. I started with 250 milligram. So it was teeny tiny. So again, I loved it. Again, making about materials. So what the first thing we did was literature review, and we would figure out in this type of material, in this type of family of compounds, what are the studies done? And then we take out what we seem interesting for us. What are the new ideas? What do we want to replace something with? For example, we had an element which should be non-magnetic and it turns out to be magnetic. So the fascinating idea was to place it in non-magnetic matrix, then place it in magnetic matrix and try to see how he behaves. So the very important fact remains for a crystal structure is that it has to be of high quality, high purity, because the noise coming from these impurity and defects can actually misinform you and you lose some fantastic information. So the focus first is to create high quality crystals, and then we start studying what's happening in them.
How do you extract any property in a lab of a material? If I give a piece of iron, let's say any metal or anything, metals might be not the ideal case. So what was the probe that you were using to get the properties out of this material that you made?
The first thing is when we grow a material, the first thing is to look it under the microscope. That's what we do. It's just that, like you said, we have fancy microscopes. So we have EDAX and EDS. So what these are essentially helping us looking at the material in nanoscales down to nanoscales. What it gives you as information is you can see actually patterns in your crystal structure. So if there are deformities, you will see it. Different grayscales will tell you different kind of compositions. So you will know that throughout the material is not homogeneous. There is some 2 or 3 different kind of phases sitting together and making a family there. You can also extract by scanning small regions and tell exactly the composition to quite decent precision how much composition percentage you have in different regions. Look at if there are different kind of phases sitting together depending on the grayscales that you see. You can also see exact compositions. So you know I wanted to make sodium chloride NaCl 1:1 ratio. But I got Na2 something. So you can also see this helps you decide your crystal growth conditions. This helps you decide the reagents to be used. So this is already a first step. Then we also do something called X-ray diffraction, XRD, which many of us learned in school. So it's based on Bragg's law, and we get actually what's the crystal structure of the material, how close it is to what we want to be, down to impurities, because you cannot hide impurities. So they will jump up and tell, hey, I'm also here. This is the first step. So if in these 2 measurements only we see what we have in addition and can we get rid of it, so that idea is to go back to the lab and try to clean up or make a fresh batch. After I have a very, very good material, I have confirmed it's highly clean, pure, then we start doing measurements. It means talking to the system. So we talk to him about how his resistance is. So interesting for kids will be we do measurements from millikelvin down to high temperature. So you cannot hide anything from us. So now it's investigation time. So we get everything out. This is important because you can see how much electron movement is changing, what is spin transfer happening. So there's so much we can get. There's also, we do specific heat. Of course, we do magnetization, different kinds of magnetic measurements. This already tells us a lot of information of what is happening in the system. In addition, we also do dielectric measurements. We all learned capacitive effect in school. Imagine measuring that through, again, the whole temperature range, also measuring it in different magnetic fields. So this is also very interesting. We also did measurements in pressure. So you say your resistance is 5 ohm. Let me give you some pressure. Now how much? So it's basically investigation and trying to figure out till you're happy with the information that you have, or you keep putting pressure on the system.
So after gathering this information, you also have analysis process, right? How do you go about analyzing your result? And what is the most interesting fact from your PhD thesis that you found about the material that you made?
To answer first part of your question, so once we have a material, we have to test it. And of course, for every kind of test, we have specialized analyzing techniques and softwares. And after that, the idea is to look also or think in a way of application. So we have different broad category of materials. We heard superconductivity. I may have said it once. Then there is different category called multiferroics. That means different kind of ferroic nature in them. So it can be ferroelectric or magnetoelectric, etc. So at the end, these materials can turn into superconducting materials. It can be multiferroics, it can be magnetoelectrics. So there's so many wide opportunities possible based on just which elements we choose, how much percentage, what stoichiometry, which kind of crystal structure, which kind of doping, how much of magnetic field, all these small tweaking factors.
And all these have some technological application, all these properties that you mentioned. So basic idea is that you get some properties, but using these properties, you can make a device out of it, right?
Yes.
Is that the idea?
The idea is to also look at a big larger time scale. A PhD is a very small time scale. So what we can see from the last few years, the size of televisions have reduced. So we have come from CRTs to these thin LEDs and LCDs. We have come from big storage devices to a small rectangular piece that you can carry 1 terabyte of information is. So our hard disk size have reduced. We have also been able to transfer information much faster. We have been able to increase the efficiency of our solar energy. So these are all improvements based on people's understanding or experiments telling us what material to use, what layering to use, which kind of deposition to use. These are all together contribute towards overall improvement of the technology.
You talked about information right now, just for the application bit, but today there are a lot of information available to people.
I can understand that today, students or anybody, all of us gets overwhelmed with the kind of information we get with one click. Idea is to not get lost in that information. I feel, yes, for quick information, I think ChatGPT is doing a lot of work for us, and people in the just before that were used to using Wikipedia for some initial information, which is okay for some basic information. But I would say one should not solely rely on it. If you're specifically talking about scientific research, this is a big NO. So one we should do is focus on reliable resources. We have very good opportunities to read from and prestigious journals. So we have Nature, we have APS, and we have so many more depending on the field of interest. The idea is to look for original documents from there. Also, when we start looking for something, we should not get distracted, because when we look into something, this also looks interesting, and then this and this, we all have been in the chain of references, right? So from one reference to another, we have fallen through. It's sometimes okay to be a bit lost to find your way back. So this helps us understand what is it really important for us, but to always keep a reminder. And this helps us. I would also say the art of making notes should not be lost, so that you don't come back to the situation again in 6 months. One thing which really was the big milestone for my PhD was my notes were intact and perfect. So every day I did experiments, every kind of measurement I did was completely precisely written in my notes. And any kind of information I learned, I would always make sure to keep it somewhere. Or even I have these printouts of my research papers, which I like the most. They were highlighted with important text I need to come back to. So collecting them is also very important, not relying that you can get it back again and again. I would say also every researcher is accessible. So I'm pretty sure you write to somebody, they will always be happy to answer your questions. So platforms like ResearchGate helped many of us a lot. Now LinkedIn is there, so I'm pretty sure people are reachable much more now. It's difficult to say what is exactly the right way to look for information, but it's important to not get distracted too much with the noise outside.
Yeah, and before we hit the record button, you were also talking about how to figure out among these 200 papers which are the important for you and decide to maybe attain or something which you can read thoroughly. How can people scan through this process? What to look at exactly? And what are the tactics and strategies can people follow?
The first thing is learning by doing. So we will end up starting with 50 paper and 50 tabs open. That's bound to happen for the start. I would say what I think intentionally do is we want to be so thorough. We start reading every paper from right from the start to the end. First is glimpsing through the abstract. And the more we read, the more we understand journals, the more we understand the style of different writings in different kind of journals, we'll understand which place to look. So the first thing I do right now is read the abstract, read the conclusion, go to the section which is interesting for me. Today, I just want to understand magnetic property, or just what happened at 50 Kelvin. So I just focus there because it's very easy to get distracted. Everything else also looks interesting. And just focus on those areas. And the more we read, the more we realize these patterns and get accustomed to it and focus on those. And when we get too much digress, then we need to again compile what is important for us and then come back to it again rather than keep searching.
I think, as you mentioned, the note taking and the art of note taking is really plays a crucial role here, because what you read, and then if you want to try to make a gist for yourself after reading and coming back to your note is also important. And not taking note and forget about it, but revisiting the notes again and again. It's a better reference point for you to go to again and again, and also from there make your understanding out of it, right? In this big vast world of references.
One thing I can suggest what worked for me was, it will obviously happen that you'll find some papers will be like, wow, this is amazing. This is really good. And we keep collecting these research papers from time and again. What I used to do was I had a folder, my favorites, or depending on the topic, multifluoroics, blah, blah, blah. And I would keep these papers or especially review articles there. It's very important to read good review articles because it summarizes everything for you. What I did at the end was I always kept things in presentation slides. So every graph I like, every kind of nice phase diagram I like, every kind of magnetic phase diagram I like, I would keep them there and put a link to the paper. So in my mind, this is picture memory technique, etc., what you can call it. So I always remember something interesting that can be missed in the future. So when I was writing my thesis, this was gold for me. So there were lots of section which I wanted to write, and if I started looking, then it would not be possible. But I had these mini notes, and I could just drag them and expand on them. I felt PhD writing was fun just because of this, because I had everything collected somewhere.
That was an amazing point. I think it's an overwhelming task to write your PhD if you do not have already prepared your notes or your thoughts, or in certain way summarized all your findings in a way. And you mentioned these tips. I think it's a really good tip to put it in a presentation form in somewhere with the links, with the proper links. And don't miss cite, or don't forget to cite people. Give the credit always. Thanks for going into the details of it. So, your PhD journey, did you get a lot of exposure during that time? What were you learning from those exposures? And who were your role models back then?
During my PhD, I had more exposure to science compared to my bachelor's because it was a much larger scale of people and influence and knowledge available. So in IISERs, we had talks from Nobel laureates and people from different spectra, different kind of trainings, even to some nice French classes. So I was trying to get whatever I can. And there was also possibility to do collaboration projects from different places in the world. I did a DART project with Germany, Goethe University, during my PhD.
DAD.
Yes, yeah. That lasted for 2 years. What it gave me was an introduction to different kind of collaboration techniques that we can use with each other. So I went to Germany for 2 months and I learned their techniques, and they came to India to our lab and they learned our techniques.
Which labs did you visit, and what are these techniques you are talking about?
Okay, so I visited Professor Jens Miller's lab in Goethe University during my DART project for 2 months, and his PhD student was in India, and he learned the techniques that we use here. So Professor Jens Müller is an expert in noise spectroscopy and microhall magnetometry. He and his group were very kind enough to introduce me to different techniques to measure noise, which is fascinating. And the idea was to understand what these hidden noises are telling about the system, which the main information is hiding. So, like we gave an example of 5 ohms, but there's a fluctuation on that 5 ohms, 4.99, 4.98, 5.01. And this tells about microdynamics that are hiding some secret information. So this association to the macroscopic measurements that we did in India gave us a very insightful picture of the material that we were testing. In addition, we also tried to make a new setup together from the information from both our sources, and that worked also fascinating, which was measuring noise on dielectric materials. So we also built up a setup, and it was a great learning experience. It started from there, and moving on, my materials needed some special tools, and these special tools included synchrotron and neutron diffraction measurements, which are in many different parts of the world. So we have in UK ICES, then we have in Germany Petra, we have in Japan Photon Factory, and we have in Switzerland PSI. And we wrote projects for all of them, and we got opportunity to do measure in all these places successfully. I must tell, there was 1 year of failure, complete failure. All the projects were rejected. Everything was rejected. And this did not dishearten me or my supervisor. We were determined because we believed that we are doing good research, and we retried again, and our application was 5 times more than we did in the past, and the success rate was very high. So I was in Switzerland to measure neutron and synchrotron diffraction. Then I also went to Japan to measure synchrotron measurements at different temperatures. And I was also in Petra to find these hidden investigative information from my materials. So this really taught me a lot about working with different kinds of people, different kinds of expertise, different kind of measurement techniques, different kind of rules and regulations that apply. And it makes you humble and a bit more aware of how wonderful research is, how disconnected and connected we are.
That's a very wonderful phrase that you used. Yeah, we are very disconnected by our geographies, but thanks to the modern world, we are also connected, and research is doing basically collaborations through these connections. So all these exposures were during your PhD, and I guess it was really important in grooming you as a person. You mentioned this 1 year of failure. I want to focus on that. This is a huge, I guess, setback if you think about it, that all your applications come back with rejections. How did you deal with these rejections, and what did you do next? You said you were not disheartened, but any PhD student, I think a common PhD student or anybody else would be really disheartened. What was your mindset? And what did you do next time different to get all these huge successes?
I would say that was not the first failure. So by that time, I was a bit used to things. But you can be like, for me, I can be sad for a small time. Then what else? I think making something new and reworking on it makes me more happy. So the idea is to fix the issue. It's not that we are running away from it. We have to accept it that this happened, and it can always happen. There are really great minds working all over the world, and sometimes we get the opportunities and sometimes not. And I work for the next time I get it. There were a lot of times initially I made really interesting materials, and the moment I made it, there was a paper published the next day on the same material. And slowly and steadily, you realize these things happen. But again, the kind of environment around was so positive, and it did not feel like a failure. It felt like, okay, it's sad, this happened, what can we do now? So the idea was, I went in with all my energy and all my motivation to make even cleaner samples, and even doing more thorough measurements, and increasing the span of stuff, and increasing this, increasing that, where I would leave no stone unturned. Because at the end of the day, I am happy that I put my best foot forward. What happens at the end is not under my control, and it's not for me to be sad about it. And that's how life works for me. So I did my best foot forward. If it had happened, not happened, maybe it was for the best, maybe not. I don't know. And in that year, the kind of materials I grew, I still carried with a lot of pride that I could make those systems.
That's amazing that you had urge to do more in the face of challenges. I'm trying to trace down to the fact that you might have learned something in that process and you did differently to get the success. So you said you made even better material. Was it something, the criticism in whichever form it came, did it also threw some light on something that was not clear before, that you had sharpened some of the skills later because of this? Did it happen that way, or it was natural?
I would say feedbacks are very, very important, especially as a researcher. One has to learn to be able to take it practically and use it to your own advantage. And I read line by line about what they are intending to say, what is it that can be improved so that these mistakes are not repeated in the future. How can I put my step or improve my next step so that further mistakes can be avoided? And most times these feedbacks or criticisms are to improve our research, so I always like to incorporate it. So many times we have had that we write a research paper and we get these comments, and there is always to and fro, and eventually one has to settle. But this whole process teaches us not to take things personally and look at the logical perspective of it. And overall, everybody benefits from it because it makes things better. And that was the whole idea. Completely normal.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's in the scientific world, the feedbacks are, even with rejections, if the referees are really good, you also learn from these rejections, because they also do not say, it's also never the case that I do not like what you did. It also why I did not like and why I think it's not up to the mark, or why is the problem. So it also gives you a lot of light, a lot of information where to work on, basically what is expected and what is missing.
Yeah, I actually use that time. I learned even more techniques, how to be so good at my confidence about my material and about my measurements. So I felt this is what is also helpful when you have such a good surrounding. Every lab in IISER is open to you. So when I want to do something, I can just go ask and we can do it together. And you can learn about the techniques. So when you have such an open environment, then you learn so much more and you're never pulled back. So there's always something to look forward to.
Yeah, openness in science plays a big role in personal development also as a scientist. And clearly it helped you a lot. So after finishing your PhD, you chose to go to postdoc, stay in academia and go for a postdoc degree. What did you think that you had learned about life apart from academia, apart from academic things? I believe that PhD doesn't only give you a degree, academic degree. It is like nothing that you have ever seen before, because first thing is, which is different about PhD, is that it's an unique journey that you realize. It's until then, until masters, you are in a cohort, you have a class, you can compare, you are on the same journey, you are taught on the same material. But PhD is a unique journey. Your challenges, your problem is particularly your own, and when you successfully defend them, you have already walked through this unique trajectory. So, do you think in that particular spatial journey of phase of your life, does PhD teach anything else, or is it all about the degree at the end?
If you talk about academia, it does hold a certain value. Where you come from, what you did, and details of it. But when you talk about transition to industry, it does not matter in the sense of degree. I always believed that since we were always surrounded by PhDs and people with so many years of experience and knowledge, I never felt this was anything that was in front of me or as a label that, oh no, I am Dr. Charu Garg. That never occurred to me. Even to say this also feels a bit awkward right now. For me, it was learning experience. I always look at it this way. Yes, degree is important to get a job and to show that I finished this level, now I have to go to next level. Yeah, yes. In research, it's important in a different way. But in industry or even in my private life, what it helps you is to make you realize that nothing is impossible. And the patience that we learn from it or the perspective that we learn from it, nothing is permanent, and never take life too seriously. All these had to come to me because I was a very, let's do it, a very energetic and very running from one point to another girl, and the calmness that it brought me, and maybe a bit of wisdom. My professor might deny about it, but I feel I can think better after my PhD. or I feel more confident about life. I might not know a lot of things, but I'm very open to learning and I'm very open to understanding with a clean slate. And I think that's the best decision of my life to do a PhD.
For my also own personal way, I have learned a lot about myself and my capabilities and these subtle things about life that I think no other journey could have given me. So yeah, it's one of my favorite questions to ask people. I guess what you get out of it, it's a lot of skills, interpersonal skills, and also a lot of soft skills that we develop along with the hard skills that comes with it. It is very important to encapsulate that, because if you talk about only time and degree, it doesn't match. But it comes with also all of these unforeseeable things.
I want to conclude this very nice topic. I would say it's a choice we make. We can have a pros and cons list. In pros, I would say we were very fortunate to have a bit more youth, an extended college life, which in hindsight I feel, wow, I think we were poor, but we were happier.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I look at it this way.
Yeah.
And again, it's a lot of sacrifice. We did a lot of sacrifice. We at that age, there were certain milestones that we expected to reach, and we were not there because we were studying still.
You mean when you compare your friends, what they have achieved inside academia, doing a job, normal status symbols, all these things?
Yes, for sure. As a normal human being, you do end up comparing or
I
trying.
don't know what normal is anymore.
Let's say this is normal. And we do end up feeling a bit peer pressure, and from family, relatives, it does come down upon us. When are you going to finish your PhD? This question might have entertained some of us from time to time. But we also look at the positives. Like I said, extended college life. I feel very fortunate. I could travel so many countries and explore so many places. And now I feel at a place where I look at those years with a lot of love and with a lot of good memories. Because after certain phase, it's difficult to take risks. At that age, we took so many risks, and I feel good about it in certain way.
I think it very much depends on the culture we are in. This family pressure, I think many people cannot correlate either this kind of things. But you're right that we were earning a lot less money in India. Whoever has done PhD at that time, especially, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys still had earned
still
more
better.
than us. Okay, you did PhD much later. When I joined PhD, my batch was the first. I think pay scale suddenly raised from, I don't know, 8,000 or 5,000 to 12,000 rupees. So our initial PhD scholarship was that. And we were feeling top of the, I don't know, on cloud nine that it has increased. People used to not get that much money. And when I finished, I think after 2 years, I think I heard that people are getting as much as person would get in the industry as the initial salary. So it was quite comparable. It was quite a good life. So I think, yes, if you compare with other friends and other people around you, this salary scale will never match if you are choosing to do a research.
So it's like a choice we make, right? I think I know monetary gains are there, but you get something else compared to what you would get in a job.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. What do you think you'd advise yourself if you are starting your journey all over again up to your PhD?
I would say number one would be to be a bit more aware. I already did this from my bachelor college to inform my professors to give students a bit more introduction of what is a research paper, what is a PhD, what are the time spans to be expected, because I was not mentally prepared for it. We were not. Who does not know, does not know. Then you are differently prepared for the battle than what you are when you are in such dilemma or completely unaware of the situation. That's number one. I wish I had known a bit more. The second thing is it's okay to slow down. It's okay to fail also. I think we are in a constant hurry about the next step, I would say it's also important to take break, take small vacations, and enjoy life as it is. It goes hand in hand. It's important for all of us to have some hobbies and some interests, read good books, play football, and talk to friends, stay in touch with family. All these social linkings to life is also very important.
Thank you. Thank you for this suggestion. Yes, Charu, when we started, there were not a lot of information, and I hope our podcast is doing its bit a little in that direction, helping people to give away this information from your experience, from all of our guests' experience, what they are bringing, their experience, their challenges, their success, and how they have faced their PhD and what are the learnings they got, and how the PhD journey helped them becoming the person they are, person they became later in life. So I hope people listen to our podcast also and learn a little bit of this and from other conversations that we have in the channel. So I would like to ask you that your decision for postdoc to do it in Germany and come to Germany, how did you come to that decision and what influenced your decision at the time? Was this a clear plan that you took, or you were thinking about other options back then?
After my PhD, I was quite certain that I want to do a postdoc. I still felt I do not have a clear vision where am I going with this, but I knew that I enjoyed so much. I want to build upon my skills and go to the next level and take on more responsibilities and to see how I feel there. And for me, I feel if I want to become a professor, I want to be so good that I can feel justified in that role. And postdoc seemed like a perfect opportunity to go there. And that was it. After PhD, I was applying. You may call it just a mere addition of luck and hard work that led to my postdoc. I was looking in the most sad phase of last few years for my postdoc because of the peak of COVID times.
A PhD, you mean?
My PhD finished at the peak of COVID. So, A, it got delayed quite a lot because of this. And B, looking for postdoc opportunities was not the best timing for me because of this, because a lot of funding was stopped. We cannot travel, and I'm an experimentalist. I cannot promise when I can come because we didn't even know when the travel opens. And the last few years of PhD was also financially strained because of the scholarship. So I don't want to not have even more money after finishing a PhD. So this was also not a major worry. So I was privileged in that sense. I was calculating beforehand, but still it's good to be prepared. So this was luck. Also, the good luck was that I did not lose hope and I was still applying, and there was some feedback. And the hard work came in because during my PhD, I did attend a lot of conferences. I did a lot of international work. So I made quite an don't want to call it impact, but quite an interaction where people would be curious to work with me. I would put it this way. They were fantastic people. So it also was interesting for me to go back and continue where we left off. In this phase only, I worked with Professor Miller in Frankfurt, and after talking about doing a postdoc, he was kind to offer me a postdoc. It was very kind offer for him, and it was a dual project between Max Planck and Goethe University, so I can learn some special techniques that are happening in Max Planck and collaborate with them, and also learn the techniques Professor Miller has expertise in.
Can I ask you which Max Planck it was?
Yeah, it was Jason. Yeah. And so I knew him, I knew his work, I knew his group. So there was no second thought when he said that. And it was also, again, we talk about luck. Luck was also in my hand in this sense that he waited for me to join as a postdoc, and he waited a decent amount of time till COVID regulations changed and travel regulations changed, and I could apply for a visa. So this is how my postdoc journey eventually started.
So, what was the first decision that came to you? Like, which continent, where, and which kind of facility that you want to, explore?
This came actually from the conferences that I attended. So first on my mind, could be naive decision, was Sweden.
Charu, I want to ask you here, were you attending conferences during the last phase of a PhD, with the hope that you will meet interesting people,
Mhm.
and then you can check already their work and whether you are interested to work with them and vice versa. Was it the goal for attending conference?
This would have been ideal, but last 1.5 year of my PhD was just COVID, so that
True.
did not happen for me.
I understand.
The first phase of conferences was Indian conferences. So my institute also organized a lot of them, and my field was very growing, so there were opportunities to learn. That was one. And the second part was there are, of course, always once in a year international magnetism conferences I was a part of. Sometimes it worked, sometimes I could not go, sometimes I could. And in these phases only, I got this opportunity to be there and present my work, which I did by that time or until that time. But yes, that would be great if at the end of the year I had the opportunity. That would be a prime time, and I would have surplus amount of data and quite clear picture of what I did to impress. One such conference was GEMS, which I attended in the middle of my PhD. It was in Sweden, and I was fascinated by the way Uppsala University looked. I don't know how to explain it. So this was my target, first love. I was applying there. I also applied in Luxembourg, so I was a bit focused in this area. I felt a lot of researchers working there were fascinated me, and I wanted to continue in that direction of work. I did also apply in a couple of universities in USA, but that's it. I just was very happy with the responses, and I was very happy with the kind of work that was happening. And Germany also, I did apply to some places, but it narrowed down very fast for me.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to share with our listeners one anecdote that during Corona, I get one email from one person. I think I was a postdoc in the Goethe University, where Professor Muller is also an experimental physicist. And I got this email from him saying, okay, I have a new candidate who is trying to join me, and this is Corona. And she's in the process of applying for a visa. Could you please help her? And here is like, she's in the CC or something. I said, yes, of course, I'm happy to help. And I get this very nice email from a student, PhD student, who is finishing and saying that I am going to apply for a visa and I got this postdoc offer. And during that time, I had the same experience that another Indian student had contacted me beforehand, just maybe 3 weeks back, and said he is also applying. So I had told this student, the second student, that okay, please contact the other person because he's going through the same process of applying visa in the Corona time from India, and I basically had no experience applying for German visa, work visa from India, because I came here from Italy. So actually the process was a little bit different and we had gone to different embassies. So I thought this student will get more help from the other one. And little did I realize that second student is a female. This doesn't matter with the process. I would have said the same thing perhaps. And many years later, I don't know, maybe when Corona was all the restrictions were easing out, and we were having first gathering as a conference or summer school, something of this sort, one girl comes to me and said, thank you. I wrote to you and my name is Charu. And I'm like, are you Charu? I thought Charu is a boy. Like, and that was our podcast guest today. So it was quite funny for me to realize my stupidity on thinking that Charu would be a boy somehow, and not realizing that the person who is in front of me could be the person who wrote me the email. But talking about writing emails, and I also get a lot of emails from various people, not only this time, but when I was in Italy also at ICTP, I was receiving a lot of emails. People who are visiting ICTP maybe for conferences, but also other people who are just contacting me for some advice or something. I think sometimes we have realized, you and me both have this experience, that sometimes the person who is writing an email, they lack certain skills to write an email. And I would like to pick your brain on this. What advice would you give? Because you wrote to me, and that was, I thought it's a very professional request. It's very clear, even though somebody has recommended you, or we are connected through another person, common known person, acquaintance. In this case, I felt like the email was very professional. It was explaining exactly what kind of help you need, exactly what is your purpose, and why you are writing to me from the beginning. And there was not a point I felt like this is certainly something somebody is asking me a favor, but in a tone that is very, maybe not very, for the lack of better word, respectful. So, what is your experience with this, and what advice would you like to give to others who are probably in the same place, writing to somebody for some favor or help, some information? We get it in LinkedIn sometimes, we get it by email, everywhere. So, could you please say something on this?
I think it's a very nice point to discuss. I must say that a lot of professors are very kind and helpful and help provide connections for people like me, you, who come from different countries, to help and stabilize and get accustomed to the new rules and regulations. And as people who have a little bit more information as compared to the newcomers, they have to understand the importance of mentoring. This is really crucial. And the attitude, what I experience, is a bit on the casual and entitled side, which I can understand. We all make mistakes, and it comes from a bit of a not experienced horizon. I think the person writing the email not aware of that they cannot use that tone. Basically, it comes from as you said, lack of experience and lack of information and knowledge. So it's true, if that person had realized that it can be perceived in a different way, they would have put more effort. Exactly for this, I guess we would like to know, can you give us some example perhaps how they do approach you? Yeah, of course. Like you said, I would be very happy answering questions on email, LinkedIn. I can try to give examples of how they presented themselves and what could be, in my understanding, a preferred method, which, as a person who's trying to help, doesn't feel restricted in helping. You have to also look at other person's mindset and timing, and also be a bit on the grateful side that they're trying to help you with that information. For example, my private number was with this person, and this person writes to me, "Hi, I got your number. You need to help me move to Germany. I need an apartment. Hello, nice to see you. Nice to talk to you. And yes, it's not easy to find apartments in Germany." So I give that person a list of places they can apply. I try to give them also a feeling that how difficult it can be, so that they're mentally prepared. Then a few days later, I get a message, "Hi, I don't like Mensa food. What shall I bring for lunch?" And these kind of things, if you listen to it, it's funny, but I can totally, after considering, I understand that they are being naive and they don't understand that this is not the kind of message I want to look at 10 a.m. in my meeting room when I'm really busy, because it's my private phone and I keep it for private usage unless until it's very important. How they can do about it? They can write a professional email if they have a lot of questions. If you get a private number, ask something which is discreet and can be formed in some small sentences. And if you need the help, it's okay to ask for a small call, small video call, or email ID, which also I have done a lot of times to my mentors. So I would prefer, or my suggestion would be, when you find somebody who can help you via your professor's contact, via a friend, via senior, write to them. And first thing you should do is acknowledge that, "Thank you so much for giving your time and I appreciate." And also write, what do you want? Okay, you want help in apartments? You write, "I want to look for apartments. I'm planning to live in this region. What are the type of housing situations? B, what is the template I can use to apply?" Or etc. C, is there anything from your experience you learned that I should be prepared before coming to Germany? D, what are the lessons learned? Is there something you would like me to do as soon as I come to Germany? Because when you're new, these are essential topics. Because if somebody gives me an outline, I would be actually happy sharing my apartment template, my situations to them in a clear, structured manner. I did that a lot of times where I had these templates ready to help other people. So when I got an email, I would just send away that, which has all the information in one section. I still do it in my company when so many people come from different regions and need help. I just send the template around. It's kind of a standard template now. I can give my examples where I needed help. So when I was applying for jobs, I needed help to how to give an interview. I didn't knew I needed, but the person who mentored me was so good that they felt that they can give some good feedback, which can be essential in changing the game of my interviews. So it was amazing how much effort and wise words they put in my head. But it could only come when I was giving clear instructions. I designed my template, I followed the instructions they gave me. Again, coming back to this, then you have to be also responsive. If somebody gives you time, be on time. If the meeting is at 4, be at 4. Sometimes you feel 4:02 is also okay. We don't realize it's a deal breaker for some people. I think at this time we should just try to respect everybody's opinions and way of living life rather than assuming if it is okay or not. And this is what I learned. These are the three things that take you forward for me is communication, adaptability, and resilience. And if we keep that in mind, even with our emails, it shows up.
So that's a very good point that everybody should keep in mind, perhaps, when asking for somebody else's time. I think time is the biggest, right now, biggest currency in the world. If you are asking for somebody's time and they're willing to share their knowledge and devote some time for your benefit, the least thing you can do is be respectful, be punctual, and show up and follow up, right? And if you have such templates, and if you decide to make it available for the listeners who would like to see such email templates, we would put the link somewhere below. One more thing I would like to add, this also happens a lot. Like, let's say I help somebody and we had a nice interaction, and or you helped me and we had a nice interaction, we developed good relation, and I end up giving your personal email or phone number to 5 more people saying Sananda helped me, so she should be okay with helping these 5 people without asking or even informing you. This is highly unprofessional. This is really something we should not take it casually, and more I still see people doing it. This is not a good idea. I would request people to rethink about it. And this phase, this age, and this profession, it's really hampering somebody's private life. We don't realize it, but it does. I think this is the minimum you could do. Just write that I know this person, they are willing to do this. Is it okay for me to share your details, contact number, email ID, whatever? Because it's true that here consent is the biggest thing, that without consent sharing these informations are against the data privacy even. Once I remember I got on WhatsApp 97 messages from different people asking for questions because this is insane. Somebody I helped and they just shared it with the whole class, and it was whole class. It was a nightmare. Yeah, I can imagine. Please, people, if you're listening to this, please keep it in mind next time and be respectful of their time and ask exactly what is in your mind, which one area you like the most help, because you might be struggling with 5,000 things, but you have to sort it out yourself. What is the first thing you need help and you have no clue how to go about it? If you know the answer, then it will clear maybe other 50 things from your list, basically. Second, I would also say, please, if you and you are writing email for the first time or even your WhatsApp message, please do not address by their name directly if you don't know them personally. So please, for Charu, please write Dr. Garg, dear Dr. Garg, I am this, I am coming from this, and I got your contact number from this person. And my question here is this. I'll be grateful if you provide any help. Best regards. Thank you in advance. And your name. So I think this could be a basic template. But don't say hi, Charu, because you do not know her. I know her in person, so I am addressing her as Charu. If Charu writes an email to you and then ending the email, best regards Charu, then she's giving you the consent to take her name, first name. In the next email, you can say, "Hello, Charu." Yes, but if she writes like Charu Garg, then you have to, these are the small details, but next time you also have to say Dr. Garg in the email. So there are different ways people give consent to use their first name. Charu, we were talking about your postdoc journey, and let's go back to that now. And you were saying that you were having these challenges in the corona time. So basically, you had applied during corona time, but it took a long time because of the different restrictions of different countries and traveling restrictions and everything. So when you landed up in Germany, what kind of challenges you faced? Because it was maybe soon after those restrictions were getting slowly withdrawn, and maybe everything was not in place, normal situation hasn't come back. What were those challenges and how did you overcome them?
I would start with what happened when I was not able to come, because that is crucial here. I think I had close to a couple of months there where I had time, that I knew I have a position and I had to wait for my visa, which I did not know when will arrive. Rather than waiting to come here and to start work, I had regular meetings with my supervisor, and we started doing theoretical backgrounds and literature surveys and discussing, and whatever we can do apart from the experiment, we started working on it. We started working on new ideas. I was preparing a lot of presentations. I was reading a lot of literature. So it kept me busy, and I knew I was doing some work. Other than that, I was started working or preparing to move to another country. So I understood how much money should I take, what kind of bank will work for me. I found an apartment before even reaching to Germany. So these things worked out for me. Visa was not in my hands, so whatever was, I tried to prepare for it. The challenge after coming to Germany was winters. I landed in November, so
Oh no.
that was something. The jacket which I felt would save me wasn't the best choice. So these are some funny challenges. Number two was it was a realization of the drastic change in food and people. I had some idea, and it reflected on how when you visit a country for a few months or few weeks to when you really go there, your perspective, your perception about that country is completely different. Initial few weeks, I still love Germany, so it was really nice. I was going around and enjoying the river, enjoying our iron bridge. It was all good. I was doing a lot of paperwork. I had a lot of support from the secretary from our university. She super nice. I was doing all the formalities, and challenges were on technical levels. For example, I need to get a new vaccine now, and the names and brands do not match, and where do we go about it? Or some paperwork, registration, getting the appointments, because already the appointments are quite scattered in Germany, that you do not get it immediately. And with COVID times, the numbers were much lesser, and appointment timings were also limited with the COVID restrictions. So these were challenges I think faced by everyone. So it was on totality on a normal day to day basis.
These are the specific challenges because of the pandemic, right?
Mhm.
But then I guess a little bit normalcy was coming back also slowly. I remember that time also we were starting again to go to in-person classes because that's the thing started first. And then people started going to the labs maybe more often in offices. But it took some time. It 2021 March, April, from that time onwards, we were trying to be normal. What were your expertise now? What where you were focusing on to gain the additional expertise, and what kind of projects you were after,
Mhm.
so that we can understand what are the skills that you were gathering during this time?
During my PhD, I did a lot of macroscopic measurements and to understand microscopic properties. And with my postdoc, it was coming to microscopic measurements, understanding microscopic properties. So I felt this was kind of enveloping quite a different kind of measurements together to understand a certain system. The first major thing I did in a postdoc was noise spectroscopy, where we listen to these little noises materials make and try to understand these microscopic interactions. I also was fortunate to work in Max Planck and understand stress and strain measurements, how these influences these interactions. Then later I worked with microhull magnetometry, where small magnetic materials with really tiny magnetic signals we can read through microhull sensors. To give you an idea of these sensors, so sensors are so many types. These you remember, you go to a door and the door senses you're there and the door opens. So these are sensors where they know your position or know your speed or know the influence of light, etc. So similarly, when you have really, really teeny tiny signals, and depending on the need, so it's magnetic, electric, pressure, etc., you can employ some techniques to read that out. And these are very sophisticated techniques because the signals are so low that you have to be sure you're measuring it. So this was one of the technique that was present in the group. So I was fortunate to learn that also. The good thing is all these techniques are very much useful if you want to go and do something application based, which was always my aim. My motivation was that I want to understand basic science, yes, but at the end, I want to see something happening out of it and be able to say that it's functional also, because these two are really equally important for me.
So, were there other responsibilities that you were taking during postdocs apart from research, like mentoring, supervising, and tutoring, lecturing?
Okay, yeah, there were a couple of more responsibilities. I would be doing tutoring a bit more if I was fluent in German. So that was a bit restricted. But I did a lot of, how do I say, practicum. Practicum is doing practical lessons for students. And in this, you show them the experiment and you go through the experiment with them and explain them. Then you interview them and they have a report at the end that you check. So this is a major part of it. It comes under the curriculum, so everybody has to do it. That I did for the university. For my group, I was mentoring master students. So that was very detailed and quite time consuming, where you have to introduce them to the new topic. We did experiments together and developed the testing, etc. And also they write a thesis later. So this is quite a detailed and time consuming journey. In addition, I was working coherently with a lot of PhD students in the group. So this was a lot of learning lessons for both of us because they had certain expertise, I had certain expertise, and we together combined that. I would say there is not a lot of hierarchy when you're a postdoc. I don't like to see that. It's about bringing skills together and helping each other together in the group. And that was the whole idea.
Fantastic. It seems like you were gathering a lot of experiences and you had a lot more responsibilities compared to your PhD days. But at that time, also, you took a decision to make a transition from academia to the industry. Was it driven by this thought that you just explained, that to see something in action, basic science techniques and tools, what it can do in real life? Was it the main drive, or were there's something else going on in your mind?
Exactly, this was the main idea. For example, I would continue with the example I just gave on the sensor. So you enter a door and the door opens. I want to see that door opening with the thing I developed. So it fascinated me that how now I know basic science, I know electromagnetic interaction and spin orbit coupling. What can it do? Can I see an element and a compound or a semiconductor that is used in this sensor, which can further do it, improve it, or work in a different environment. So this fascinated me. Again, it's just a journey and it's a learning experience, but I felt industry gave me more opportunity or more platform to explore on this level with the experience I got from academia. So it felt like a good transition.
Mhm. Let's zoom on this transition period a little bit, because I think this is vital for our listeners to know that we make various transitions in life, right? From one phase to the other. But there are a lot of decision making, there are a lot of preparation, and there are a lot of skill gathering that is going on before we make the transition. So, in this case, because you are our first guest in the podcast, actually, who made this transition successfully, we would want to talk about when people go beyond academia, make this transition to industry, what kind of uncertainties that people feel generally, or the fears, because that's the world they haven't experienced before? And how can one best prepare themselves before making these transitions if they're facing those challenges?
Well, it's a very good question. And I must think before I say something.
Let me ask you, did you have any fear, or was it clear in your mind how this transition would look like? Or you had such a clear idea that you did not have any time to focus on fears, because it might be true to your personal experience that you never felt those challenges.
I would say first thing was a lot of fear, because I felt very, very much passionate and aligned with doing research. I was a co-researcher, Saturday, Sunday, weekend, and just nothing was on my mind but my work, in a good way, in a happy way. Like you said, we never saw a life beyond that. What is normal job? I don't know. And for me, that did not feel exciting at all. So the first fear was, will I regret not doing research anymore? Will I miss being able to have so much of freedom in ideas, working with such fantastic, amazing, talented people from different horizons? And this was my fear. Will I get bored? Will I feel I made a mistake? Yes, these were valid fears. And I just started doing my first application. It still was there. And I was also doing postdoc applications also, in addition to industry positions, because there were some positions, there were some research groups where I still felt I would rather give my research life a bit more life before I leave it, in case I want to leave it. So yes, those fears were there. Also, there were some interactions with people from industry and researchers who have left and transitioned, or who haven't, or had some experience. And there were some pros and cons. And it, of course, is really dependent on person to person, what works for them. And fears were also like, is it too late? Because some people even told me, oh, after a postdoc, it's too late to enter industry. Or if you do one more postdoc, then forget about industries. I would not ask people to get scared because of these views, because they are so general and it can be so different on your experience. So just go with the flow and go with what you want to do. I felt the transition was the right time for me, for different personal and reasons also. And actually, what solidified my feeling to be in industry was the interview rounds. And then I felt I'm at the right place. There were thorough interviews. I had 4 to 5 rounds of interviews, and they just, how do I say it, dig deep into my physics knowledge, in my application knowledge, in the breadth and the depth, the focus. And I felt more and more, I know this sounds good, or the kind of things they're doing, this sounds good, this sounds good. And this solidified my trust that this could be something for me, because it might seem completely a different world, and it might seem I might have to do some tasks which I'm not really fond of, or some techniques. But that solidified my feeling. And eventually, when I visited different groups for interviews, it it felt like, I believe in gut feeling. It felt right.
Mm-hmm. That's so much to unpack here that you told us about this detailed experiences. First of all, if I understand you correctly, you were saying that it's okay not to know, and it's okay to face that fear, but in the face of that fear, you have to also take action. You have to keep on doing what you believe is right, and keep showing up yourselves for interviews, for job applications, but also do everything at the same time which is in your capacity, right? You did focus on industry because you were not sure. You were also doing other postdoctoral applications in the academia because you wanted that option to be open for you. So what I'm getting is, for the listeners to note that if you are fearful, that is okay. You should not hide yourself in somewhere, someplace, but just show up and do take actions, whatever is in your control and how much your energy and time allow you to take the direction. But also, you mentioned one more thing. I think that is also a crucial thing to note for preparation, that you not only applied, not only showed up for interviews in both academia and in industry, but you also contacted people. and got their views and discussed with them, you found mentors in this space. How does that process look like? Where do you find these kind of mentors, and where do you approach them? What is the conversation like? How do you just test your idea and discuss these pros and cons, which is best suited for you?
Mhm. The first thing is, when we move from academy to industry, or when I was applying, I did not shoot in the dark. I did my study. I knew what kind of work fascinates me, what kind of work I can do, I can be good at. And these were the targeted places where I applied, because then your motivation to apply or how you write your cover letter is much more honest and streamlined. And this is very important for me, because when you just put everything out there, it's too scattered. There should be some direction of what actually is your purpose and where do you want to go. So my applications were also streamlined, because for every application, your cover letter, your resume has to be modified. It cannot be copy paste. Let me put it simply. And that is a lot of work. That's a lot of working hours. And I would say, rather than doing 50 applications without any clear mindset, do five, but where you believe in and where you feel aligned and which is the truth for you. Regarding mentorship, I really respect my seniors and I always take their opinion on how their journey has been, minding that, of course, it changes from person to person. I listen to a lot of people working in industries. How was the transition for them, especially academics? I also talk to people who came back to academy after industries. So this gave me different perspectives, different viewpoints. And actually, these interactions make you feel to not fear it. You have to do it, right?
But were all of these your previous acquaintances, or did you approach some of them just by cold email?
One, I don't remember if there was anybody new. I knew one person was senior to me, very, very senior to me. I was writing to them, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am to their viewpoints. Why I tell you? Because in academia, we never give interviews, official interviews. We had some sort of formal introduction where we presented our PhD work and we gave a lot of presentations, but nobody in academia made you sit and ask you, what will you do if this happens on an HR level? Or what will you do if a supplier doesn't respond to you? These kind of questions, which are technical yet not technical. Or what will you do if your results are not as per what is required? Academic mindset is very different. Industry mindset is very different. And it made me realize that I have to think differently. It made me understand what is required. I think there's a lot of literature out there on preparation for interviews, and I also tried my best to understand it. And this was the preparation for industries. And I tried to learn from people how their interview was, how much technical it gets, and how many layers of interviews are there. I learned about different companies. I knew about one company I would not mention, that they have a half an hour call interview, so they get a basic feeling about you. That 1 hour of formal interview where you have to make a small presentation about your work, and then HR round. So if I don't know this, I would not be ready with my presentation. So
Okay.
I would say one has to really think differently in an industry mindset. This is my private personal opinion. We have to leave the way we are thinking in academia. In academia, 16-page CV sounds fantastic. In industry, please, 2 page, and it's more than enough. Nobody is going to go to the third page. And the content and the key points, this all slowly develops. I think ChatGPT is there to help all of us now, and there are many modules and templates to go through these fancy scanners, etc. This I don't know because I did it before all of this was available. I would say make use of it, and this actually is essential nowadays with different companies using these to filter out your resumes.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned this is a very important point, the mindset. So you have to think about your interviewers. Why would they want you? What is your role? And what will you do on a day to day basis to increase their productivity or have high revenue or something along this line? In industry, there are other variables or parameters that are present. especially time and money. So thank you for pointing this out. What were your transferable skills that you think that you got up to your postdoctoral days that helped you to make the transition and help your interviewer also to make an offer to you because they found those skills in you?
The first answer that came to my mind after I heard your question, I would go with that is PhD and postdoc really transformed me as a person. I'm much more calmer. I'm much more relaxed when a problem comes at my door. And I think this is a wonderful skill PhD gave me. And this affected positively a lot my problem solving techniques. So this is the skill I would put as first, where I feel that as a PhD, as the postdoc, we develop really good problem solving techniques. I would say we are not fearful anymore because we have been thrown out in the open to something completely new. And when I look back at it, it was good because we had the time to do it. And now we develop the trust in us that we can do it. I was given a data to solve, and it took me 1 week to even open the data file. I had no idea what is the .gsp format. I don't remember what it was. Which platform can I open it with? And to a point where I could solve really complex data. I think this is a very happy feeling about for me to think in that way, because I think we are always fearful. I do that too. I'm saying it, but I do that too when I look at a job offer. I don't know this. I don't know this. So I should not apply. It's okay. Is it something I can develop as a skill in 6 months? Then I would rather train for it. I would study about it. But it's very important to add up to your skills because you will never fit perfectly from one job to another job. It's very rare. You will have to get trained, you will have to adapt. And I think the best way of moving forward is to be open to adaptation and adding on to the skills. And I think this is the fun part of life for me to keep moving.
Great.
It's I can add on to this by saying this is of course on a personal skills which are applicable to professional skills, but all the professional skills or learning some techniques, instruments, or management skill, this is of course transferable, and you can always carry it forward. And the experiences learned from the past always helps in learning something or carrying something new. This is for sure. I just wanted to put what I feel comes first for me.
Yeah, this is again very insightful also to know the perspective from a person who has taken that journey, who has been there, who has made the transitions and has been successful. So your experience actually matters to our listeners and our community and to us, thinking about what can come next and basically prepare ourselves best for the situation, right? When you made this transition to the industry, I would guess that you had faced with different kinds of challenges. So, if you had faced some challenges in the initial days, especially after the transition, and if you look back on them now, what did you give yourself advice to get prepared for those kind of challenges after the transition?
It's a very good question. These things you feel when you are on the bridge, crossing the bridge, you know how high the bridge is. And I felt the first thing was that at one place in my postdoc, I was the most senior. I had a lot of responsibilities and I knew everything going around, to coming to a place where I was the most junior and knew nothing, absolutely nothing, not even where the water machine is. So it really humbles you down. I came with a very open mindset and I knew where I'm heading towards. So it didn't scare me as much, but I would say it was intimidating because when you come and you say, "Hello, my name is Dr. Garg," and you don't know anything, it doesn't feel good because all your life, 10 years of your research, you always knew something. You always had something to say. And this was fascinating for me. It was a time consuming process to develop new skills, new methods, new techniques, new work environments. For example, I come with knowledge of physics. That's good. Okay. And I now working in an automobile company. There's a lot of physics used, but I did not know how does an automobile company work. What are the standards? What are the laws? What are the rules and regulation? What are the formal documentations called? And everybody is talking in jargon, which I have no idea. Let's do the EX with this, MBN happens with this, VW is this, 80,000 happened with this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Where is the SDF file? Did you load the LDF file? I'm like, what is happening?
I feel like anybody who are in this situation would face this humongous challenge because it's a totally different planet, it seems. But was there any orientation or training period, no knowledge transfer that is like generally the norm in the field?
I would say yes. It depends again on company to company how they do it. Do they do it on a general platform basis? There's an orientation class, or there are some lecture videos already implemented, or mostly many companies do like your support person, so somebody who's really experienced in the field. Either you follow them up every day, or they are the person who is your contact person, and you closely connect with them. In my company, also, this was something close to this. I had a wonderful colleague who took me around everywhere. It's really funny. My manager dropped me in my office, and I had visited the office once before during my interviews. So he dropped me to my office and asked me to connect to this colleague later. And on Teams, this colleague is writing me, "We can meet at the test bench." And I said, "Okay." And me being very Indian and being very shy about telling, "I don't know where is the test bench." Eventually, I wrote to him that I don't know, and he said, "Okay, stay where you are. I come and pick you up." And coming from there, and it's a different world, and you need different kind of trainings and different kind of certifications to be able to use some components. To give an example, everybody knows we do some soldering to connect some wires. In academic world, it's quite normal. In industries, you need to get a certificate to be able to do it. You cannot just do it. This is also very, very important. In academia, we would do everything. In industry, somebody is assigned a certain job. They have the right and regulation and certification to do it. Only they can do it. And this I have to learn. This is not my job, or this is my job. A bit of a bifurcation happens there. In academia, you're doing everything right from starting to end, which has pros and cons to both the things. This was number one. Yes, jargon is completely different. And yes, it's a completely different alien world. But you have to realize that I was the alien one. They were not the aliens. Because they all come from 15, 20, even 40 years of automobile background. For us, if somebody comes to me and says, what is a cloud? And we'll be looking at this person, what's wrong with them? And for me, not knowing even the basics, which is something simple, was I realized that I'm really, really an alien, and I need to learn these things. And I did, and it was a very open environment.
But at the same time, there are other challenges one can face, right, in the workplace, because the workplace dynamics are quite different in academia and in the industry. Did you see any difference in the dynamics of working, or research is research in both the place, so therefore no such difference?
I think it's just people in academic world. Also, different groups behave differently, and their dynamics were much different. Some groups can be very professional. Some people were more diluted in terms of interaction on personal life, or even on a private level, or on a work environment, how much they talk and how they do. In my company also, there are different kinds of people, and I would say I'm a bit of a people's person, so I can move around much smoothly. I'm used to living in a place where people come from different countries and different cultures, have friends from different horizons. I try to be as open, and I try to be as clear with my language and friendly. I think this is really important, and you learn so much. It really helps. There are some people who are so direct it can seem rude, but they are not direct, and this is something we learn with time, that this is really not rude, or this is really not this way, etc. And I would say this is very important, to keep an open mindset. We all have our ways of being, and so they have.
Yeah, that's a wonderful note. And that's, I guess, what creates harmony in any place that brings many different people from many different backgrounds to work together. So, such kind of mindset only can help in the productivity and also smooth running of the organization.
Diversity brings strength. So.
Yeah, but you are moving from strength to strength and you are gathering so many new skills till date. What is the one skill that you think you got only in the industry and that you were not exposed in the academia, that really beneficial for your personal growth?
Not for the podcast, on an honest level. One thing I learned from an industry is to let it go. In academia, we want answers for everything, and there is one man army. Yes, we have professors and students, and together grad students, we are all working together. But in industry, the scale is humongous, and the work is split between so many people. So you have so many people expertise in so many things. So things happen really fast. So you can let it go in the sense that not all questions need detailed answers. And there are really specialists for those, so you can always approach them. And this change in mindset or this way of working is very different and works in industries very effectively.
That lets me think that maybe we are in the process of borrowing this kind of mindset also in academia. Nowadays, we see that 20 authors in one journal published paper. And these are the, I think, mindset that brings all these people together so that you can make fast paced research in a more meaningful way. We are almost at the end of our podcast. Before jumping to some fun trivia about yourself, I would like to ask, because I'm very curious about this thing. In academia, we learned slowly to how to track our progress through different things. There are some different parameters you can look at because it's obviously very different. Research is very different from the experience you get in higher education up until a PhD. The process of tracking success or progress is very different. Then you learn a new system in research, how to track your progress and what it means. It's very personalized in it. It's a very unique way to define your own personal progress because it's not comparable. But in industry, again, you bring so much of different individualistic expertise. How do you keep track of progress? Is it like intertwined with the success of the project or success of the team in certain areas, or are there other parameters and areas to look for?
Mhm. I can give you an example of my situation. Could be different for different people, levels. In our case, what my manager has is a system where he has developed targets for everyone that within 6 months you should be doing this, 1 year, 1.5 year, etc. It depends on your background and on your timing in the company. So you become a trainee, but you're not a trainee, but you get trained in a certain things, and then you develop an expertise in a certain thing, so you can train somebody later. And this is an ongoing process. And depending on how much skills you develop, add on to your skills or your targets are achieved. This is number one. There are also one-on-one meetings quarterly or half a yearly, depending on your boss, where you track your progress and how much you have achieved. It can be in terms of good business done on your end, or it could be terms of progress, which can be tracked. Could be in some companies if they're selling products, it could be number of products, and if you are responsible or what was your role. It could be development, if something was new to develop, what was your role. So in this way, this is the way things are tracked, because for everything there are so many people contributing. There's not one person who's responsible for it. So these are small ways of doing it. Also, the working system is different, so it might sound funny, but we have something called work packages in a day-to-day basis. So every day our hours are split in those, and we have to work on those specific ways. This was also quite a big transition for me, to lock in my hours and to define what I have to do. This we never do in the academy. What we have to do, we have to work. So this is a way that they track all the different projects you have worked on, or it really shows up that after working 1 or 2 years in a company, if more and more responsibilities come on you, or you work with different kind of departments, that you really seep in and you really gather information and knowledge, and now you are looked upon as a responsible person. So it's very local. There's no general, like in academy, you will have a nature publication and you have achieved something. It's
Oh,
very unreal.
I would disagree. Otherwise, also there are
It's like a universal, how should I say, barometer.
yeah, and then many of us wouldn't pass on that scale. So let's go to some fun trivia about you. Before I let you go, what are your hobbies?
It changes from time to time. I love cooking and experimenting. I think I'm an expert in cheesecake making right now, baking right
Wow.
now. It could be taken to professional level at some point.
Next time when I'm visiting you or you're visiting me, I'll expect.
For sure. And I, of course, enjoy some sport and some artistic endeavors from time to time.
Great. What are the languages that you speak? I think you are speaking German these days because you said Sport, not.
Yeah, I end up saying danke when I'm in India. It is so embarrassing that Entschuldigung. I am trying to learn German much more sincerely than before because I do feel committed to the country now. As a postdoc, you're a nomad. So, yes, of course, I speak Hindi and English. Other than that, I do understand many more languages. So, I can understand a bit of Marathi because I was in Maharashtra for 8, 9 years. I do understand a lot of Bengali because of so much of Bengal influence around me. And
Next time I'll test you on that.
yeah. And in India, you do end up understanding many languages. It's
Mhm.
very, very natural.
Who are your role models? Influenced your life?
It actually changed from time to time, but the constants are one of my professors from my bachelor's and my mom. They are the founding grounds and will always be of what I am. Of course, my family, my parents, and my relatives, and my friends, they all were a source of constant inspiration and support throughout this journey. But these two people really influenced my mindset and my approach or my feeling or my own judgment of what can I do or achieve is through
Can you give a shout out
Ramesh sir, it's you.
for our audience? Can you say the full name?
Oh yeah, for sure. He's Dr. Ramesh Kumar. He's a wonderful, wonderful professor in my bachelor's college.
So, if our listeners want to reach you in social media, are you in LinkedIn, other platforms where they can reach you in case? Before I let you go, the last question: what is the biggest challenge that you have faced in life in your whole career journey until now? And if you go back and can advise to your younger self, what would that be?
I look at it as a magician point of view. For me, life is like a magic trick, okay? When you see a magic, you're fascinated by it until you know how it happens, and then it's egal. I don't know the English word for egal now. It doesn't matter.
Somebody is Germanizing herself.
And this is how I start with my life, where I always look for a happy or fun point to start with something. Yes, I have faced challenges. Things were not smooth sometimes, and it's okay. And that's the lesson I have learned. It's okay to take a pause. It's okay to fail. It's okay not to be the best at everything you do. And the idea is to just slowly keep moving forward, and things really work out. It's not stopping, it's not the end of the world. I applied for Humboldt Fellowship. I had really high hopes. I worked really hard for it. I did not get it. And I believe there must be something else in store for me. I believe the message is do your best in your best capability, with your best heart, with your best honesty, with your full honesty. Eventually, whatever result comes, accept it with grace. And this is it. Move on. It's okay. In that process, I learned so many things. I feel I was much better writer, much better thinker, and maybe that's what is my lesson right now.
Thank you, Dr. Garg.
I'm
Thank
very
you,
philosophical.
Charu, for your insights and for sharing these amazing tips with us, for my listeners. And I am pretty sure many people will cross that bridge. And obviously, I also do not like to use the terminology that moving out of academia, let's say going beyond academia, and because it doesn't decrease or any way diminishes your capabilities, your skills, and your talent. So you just go to another land and explore new techniques, new skills. And thank you for giving us some insights and some lenses to look through this so that this bridge becomes a little smaller for another person who will cross next?
For me, I still hold a lot of respect for academics. I think it's a selfless job. It's a lot of hard work. It's really what smart people do. And it eventually is most essence of what we are here for, to find the right answers. And I totally believe in it. And I feel I would never take this back from my life, the research I did. At this point, I felt I want to transition. It doesn't mean I leave academia, it will still be in me. In future, I do plan to collaborate with academics. I'm already giving some tutoring. I want to do some more work with researchers, but for that, I need to set up a base, and this is where I'm heading with. And I hope we can come together. And I'm pretty sure there's so many academics and industry collaboration works already happening. So it's just a bridge that's slowly connecting. And that was the whole idea for my journey.
Thank you, Charu, for your time. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your life lessons with us.
I had a wonderful time, Sananda. Thank you for doing this for people. It's really wonderful what you're doing. I really appreciate it. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
inviting me.
Oh, thank you. So that makes me happy. This was our conversation with Dr. Charu Garg, a thoughtful and an honest walkthrough of what it means to grow through science and beyond it. From discovering physics as a student to navigating the layered experience of an integrated PhD at IISER Pune, Charu shared practical insights into literature reading, handling rejections, and understanding the broader value of a PhD. Her reflections remind us that uncertainty is not a detour in science, it's part of the process. We also heard about her postdoctoral phase and the deliberate steps she took towards transitioning into industry. Her experience highlights how skills developed in academia, communication, critical thinking, and persistence translate powerfully beyond it. What stands out most is Charu's clarity, knowing when to persist, when to adopt, and when to change direction without seeing any phase as a failure. If you're a student, researcher, and professional navigating your own career transition, we hope this conversation has resonated with you or gave you a little perspective. If so, then please share, comment, and follow or subscribe to our channel. And as always, you can find links to the people, places, and topics discussed in the description box below or in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.